one day I was in Pasadena in a record shop, and on came the Inner Flame album. And I was saying to you that Billy Cobham's work was so incredible because, yeah, chops, yeah, all that, but he was dirt funky, man. His hi-hat work on that jam, Vital Transformation, is incredible. How mean and street and the hip new generation coming into the jazz. That's what caught me. Vishnu's great guitar work, all that, yes, but the drumming. And then when I found out it was Cobham, I remember I had heard Cobham a little bit, was the band called Dreams with Will Lee and all them cats. And then I realized again how clean he is, how beautiful. You know, a lot of drummers are great, but they may not be as clean. Cobham was so clean and so precise and nasty at the same time. It was phenomenal.
It's something we just did. Nothing can be foreseen. With John playing with him, he invited me to give him a hand with some material that he had some ideas. I mean, when you see with a little spiral back notebook that he had, which was it was like a little tiny black book like this, but it was yellow. And I remember this so well because I said, "What is in that?" You know, I thought, "Oh, he had some music and he wanted me to play." Huh. He says, "Okay, what do you think about this?" And he started playing. He said, "What could we put? What could you put behind this line?" And so we started playing. He didn't even count off. He just boom, and it just sort of started to fall. He said, "Okay, now where we go from here?" And once these little modules started to connect, we had a groove that cut right straight through. And so he'd go back and he'd remember. We go back.
It all started off as you and John, wasn't it? It was just you and John.
It was us in duet for about 10 days. And then within that 10-day period, towards the end of the 10 days, Jerry Goodman showed up. And then Jan Hammer showed up. And then Rick came finally. And so remembering all of that, carrying those lessons around for the rest of my life, it was easy to just lay things down. And the first, how can I say, lesson or idea to present is one of stability. If it's going to be a shuffle, and as long as that stayed stable, there were a lot of different things that could happen on it. And we were at a point in time where all those patterns were repetitive. So people got used to this odd kind of feeling that we're in our environment in which we work. And that's what set us off from a lot of other artists, where in some instances we were opening, let's say, for a real pop star kind of guy, I forget, and he was a closing act at the Beacon Theater in New York. And in the middle of us and them, we are the opening act and he's the end act. Of all bands to have, the promoters had hired the Cannonball Adderley Quintet to play after Mahavishnu. No one's taking into consideration, because they just see the money, just the dollar signs. Cannonball, even this is with George Duke and
I was going to ask you.
And this band's great, but it's a different kind of personality, man. And so you don't put them after us. But I mean, when we finished playing, everybody left, and we had 2 shows to do.
Yeah.
And there was a line waiting outside, and we was supposedly were just the opening act. Well, as it turned out, this next show, they came on before us, and so did the lead act, whomever it was. And he, he wouldn't touch anything until he got out of the way, because he wanted to be in the audience so he could hear what we were doing.
He taught me when he asked me to join the band. He said, I'll come back in January of 1974 in the basement where you practice with Jatra, and I will teach you to play with me. And he did. He came in the basement, and we would play in 7, 9, 11, 13, whatever it would be. And he wanted to play cat and mouse. And when I say cat and mouse, I mean the highest level of cat and mouse, where he would not want me to play downbeat. Don't play any ones. Just go with me. Just go with me and listen. And don't play too many downbeats. So I just learned how to just kind of just listen to him. And then when I see his body rock, I see what he'd get into. It would be like phenomenal. For just to hear how he plays is phenomenal. Yeah. And then also, I also found a freedom in a bass line. If a bass player was there, Ralph Armstrong or some bass line, where I could hook onto that and the odd meter. Because Vishnu would teach us the odd meter could be like a shape. He said, learn the shape of it. So the bass could also help me find the shape. Like you mentioned Miles Out, right? The way I can get so far out there on Miles Out is because of that bass line.
Yeah.
Is it double this, go dig it, skit. I hear that in my head, in my headphone. Then I know it's there. I can depend upon that. I can go out to Venus. I can go out to Mars. I can go out anywhere I want because I know. But did it.
Coming out of the orchestra, I never wrote a note of music for the Mahavishnu Orchestra. It was all John stuff. I was so comfortable playing that stuff, but then came how can I put it, the poison that goes into bands, when they're pitted against each other. And it's just, musicians are very, very, in my opinion, very, very sensitive. If they love what each other's, and they have respect for each other, it doesn't have to be love it, but I personally had the deepest respect for the music that John had written for that project, for the first project. So I was comfortable with it. But there were some other cats, it was Jerry and Jan, who liked it too, but they wanted more. They wanted to, they were so influenced, they wanted to write like John. And so one's a string player, okay, violin. The other one's a keyboard player who had taken keyboards at that point in time to a completely different dimension and level, and started to emulate the guitar, So with Jan, you had primarily Mini Moog, Oberheim, and these effects and all. Very unique. And I was really a big fan of his because he saw that in the environment in which he was playing, he was just a minor player on that instrument, because in those days, the old guys were, Hank Jones, Errol Garner, George Shearing, and Bill Evans, and it would just go on and on and on with all these piano players who were insane. And then the next generation was McCoy Tyner and Herbie Hancock, and I mean, again, it was like through the roof. Chick Corea, his contemporaries. So he thought, well, what would happen if I did this? And he started to really tinker with Bob Moog's Mini Moog. Take that on the road. Nobody was doing that. Not really. The doors were just opening up, and he was so comfortable in it that he then started to emulate, I think, all out of pure respect, whatever John was playing on guitar. Problem is, I learned over years is that it takes a long time for guitar players to play all that stuff that they play on guitar. They have to memorize a lot of the fingerings and all of these things. And for me, in a way, playing the drums, I have a rudimentary procedure that I pursue. So it's like, of course, I gotta, if I'm going to play a rhyme cue here, or I'm going to play a triplet here, or I'm going to treat this rhythmic pattern more in a duple way, and I'm going to phrase. That's all there already, and that's my sandbox in which I work in, and I can expand and contract as long as I stay in those parameters. Guitar players, man, are trying to find ways to reinvent themselves. It seems to me like every note, there's got to be this sound effect or this effect or that effect, or and you're just going, okay, now I get it. And Jan just tweaks a couple of knobs, and boop, 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 boop. This sine wave replaces that sine wave. It's a square sine, it's a rectangular, it's a sawtooth, it's pink noise, all combined, and then plug into an effect. And boy, what you got. It's pretty interesting. And then of course, he controls the reverb, echoes, all of this. At some point in time, John got very upset, and rightly so, because he has a platform, and it's becoming more and more narrow, and then you're throwing in, he's playing a tremendous amount of notes per bar, and it's all there, it's hovering around every chord change and the things that he's written, which were quite unique, because not just were they melodically and harmonically unique, but we were playing a lot more than bands like Dave Brubeck in 9 and 5. We're doing 13s and 21s and God knows what else,
Well, I'll try to condense it, but basically, as a 10-year-old in 73, we had Birds of Fire on 8-track tape.
You lucky thing.
But I was lucky because my Uncle Dave was sort of an older brother figure to me, and he was living that stuff in his college years. So he turned me on to Genesis, he turned me on to Mahavishnu, Return to Forever, Where Have I Known You Before? I remember that hit hard. So I was aware of prog and jazz rock simultaneously. And I noticed that guys like Chick and John were classical minded players, that they knew Ravel and they knew Stravinsky, and they named their album Birds of Fire, and they would do these references to Miles Davis, Miles Beyond, or Love Supreme on Love, Devotion, Surrender, and all of a sudden I'm being exposed to jazz when I didn't realize it. What is jazz repertoire? That was something that Nels Cline and I came up against when we saw the Ken Burns documentary on jazz, and it didn't include so much. And we thought, well, how does one then position what you feel is important in history, and what is repertoire to you? Well, we thought free jazz was repertoire. And then in 98, Interzone, my group with Nels Cline, Alex Klein, and Stuart Liebig, were doing a record called Myriad, and I wanted to do Sanctuary. I thought, why wouldn't we do Sanctuary? Well, repertoire is still repertoire. Now, at that time, and it's less so now, but at that time, you need about 30 years away from something for it to be viewed, legitimately as repertoire. And I was looking at Mahavishnu, and it was about 20 years from 71 to 2001 when I started the Mahavishnu project as a project that would play that music, but in our way. So we weren't looking to reproduce solos. We weren't looking to reproduce even arrangements. At times I would mess with the arrangements, but in a way that would give us more freedom to be ourselves and to take it from the original guys to maybe a different place, a more personal place, but still respectful of that vocabulary. Because if you're going to play COBHAM, you have to have your rudimental thing together. You have to have, your independence together. You have to be able to conceptualize groupings of 2s and 3s and 3s and 2s. And if you can become comfortable in that language, then you can achieve some sort of freedom. So I used every album, I mean, less so for Apocalypse, but I did an arrangement for string quartet and soprano of Smile of the Beyond. We never really got into stuff on Inner Worlds, but everything else was on the table. We did complete Emerald Beyond as a suite of pieces. We did complete Intermounting Flame, complete Birds of Fire, Lost Trident sessions, anything. And then we did music of John McLaughlin before Mahavishnu, music of John McLaughlin after Mahavishnu. We've branched out into Jan Hammer's music. So it kind of became a repertoire project of all jazz rock that we could get our hands on, or that was possible with the group, with that instrumentation. So a tribute, yes, but a living tribute, I think. A live wire kind of tribute where something's going to jump off, and that's the way it should be. It should be spontaneous, and there should be a lot of listening and a lot of responding going on, and understanding the spirit of jazz rock. I mean, when people use the term fusion, just to put a finer point on it, I just view fusion as a concept, not as a genre.
Well, yeah, he's the other one. He's the other one. I mean, there's a live performance of his song called Sister Andrea. And it's a live performance with Mahavishnu, 72 or 3.
Yeah, 73 off of Between Nothingness and Eternity.
Yeah, but it's actually a video.
Oh yes, yeah.
It's a video, and it's the video. Every video quality I've ever seen has not been pristine, unfortunately. But there's this thing where he's kind of going between electric piano and synth here and synth over here, and he's getting this groove going that is just like, you got to be kidding me. Nobody was doing this. Like, it was just ripping.
It was somewhere in when I was in, maybe a year or so after that, I was listening to the Mahavishnu Orchestra's record, Birds of Fire, which is an incredible record. And for some reason, in the middle of that record, I said, oh, now I see why they hated Winton. Okay, all right. Oh, I got you. I'll tell you a quick story of how that even started. Because when I was a kid, I did have a negative view of fusion, but I thought it was the smooth jazz of the 80s. That's what I thought it was. Yeah. That's what I thought it was. So one day, this is like early high school, I remember my father was talking about the drummer Jeff Tane Watts, who played with Branford and Winton, obviously, and then he tells me, yeah, man, Tane gets all this stuff from fusion. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? I didn't say that, but I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I'm hearing like Kenny G's music, like, what did that? So anyway, so when I was in high school, I was at this summer camp, and I was at this CD store back when we had those. And so there's all these CDs, and I look down, and I see this CD that catches my eye because it was released on Columbia Records. Now, Columbia was doing their jazz masterpieces. You'd see this blue border, but now I see this thing called Contemporary Masters, and I hadn't seen these. And the record was, I'm looking at this record, and it says, Return of Forever, Romantic Warrior. What the hell is this? I was like, what, 1976? What? I don't know. So, but fortunately they had a listening station. I'm like, I gotta hear this, man. What is this? So they're putting it on, and I open up the booklet, and I see the person. Now I was like, oh, Chick Corea, okay. Lenny White, okay. Oh, okay, I know these guys. All what I didn't know at the time was Al Di Meola. I didn't know him, but I know these guys. And when that music started, I'm sitting here like...
And then Lenny White kicks in that drumming. God.
And I'm sitting like, what the hell is this? What is going on? I don't understand what's... And then the music stops, and then Chick Corea goes to another keyboard, and I'm like, huh? And then there's this breakdown where Lenny White just starts going off. And I said, that was just like paradiddle with bass drum and stuff. But I remember saying, wait a minute, this must have been the music Dad was talking about when he said that Tame was influenced by fusion. And then the music continues. I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. What is? And at some point I had another question like, wait, how do we go from that to where we are in the 80s? This is not adding up. Like, this is not, something's not making any sense here. So I remember not long after hearing it, I think I had called Branford, because, with fusion stuff, I'd talk to him. And I was like, hey man, do you know about this record, Romantic Warrior, Return to Forever? He's like, yeah. He's got all excited. Yeah, they're killing. I was like, man, what are these cats playing? I don't know what they're doing. Oh man, you'll hear it, man. You'll check it out. I was like, damn it. No help at all.
Oh yes, that's Jimi Hendrix studio.
Yes.
Electric Ladyland Studios. I'm in the same place where Mitch Mitchell sat. I'm in the same place where Buddy Miles sat. I'm in that little corner there where the drums go. And Ken Scott is so incredible because he would teach us mic the drums a certain kind of way to get those sounds you hear, or he would teach us to put a sheet over the bass drum for bump 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 bump, how to get that beautiful sound like Ringo would get. I put a towel on a bass on a tom tom, just whatever it would be. Ken Scott was really incredible to work with at that time.
Yeah,
because I really wanted the drums to sing, and he knew all about that. And Mahavishnu was also very beautiful to bring us along.
I'm trying so hard not to ask drummy questions because I know I can go down that road. But your toms on those albums, I've been in studios playing Visions of the Emerald Beyond, saying, get the toms like this, because they seem to just run into each other. It's an incredible sound. Absolutely incredible.
Wonderful engineers, and those were wonderful drums. Those are Gretsch drums that were painted on the inside, double enamel. It's kind of a gray paint, double sprayed. And the guys who put it together at Frank's Drum Shop, I told them I was coming into the Mahavishnu Orchestra, and Billy was playing Fibes, those clear, loud Fibes drums. So I said, I need a drum set, and I want them to be white, but make them loud. And they said, okay, we're going to double spray paint them on the inside, double coat them. And it was a trick. It made them really like what you hear on the record.
Yeah.
Just bing, 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 like that. And the snare drum, they made customized for me as well with a kind of, it's called catgut on the bottom. They were straight on the bottom, like 5 straight strands. I've never seen anything like it, but that became the snare drum.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I know. So they get all the credit. I just told them, give me what do you think would be the best, and they did. Frank's Drum Shop. That's the mecca in New York. I mean, you see Joe Jones laying up against the wall talking stuff. You see any of your heroes coming in there. It was that kind of place.
Yeah.
You see, you were very humble there, very humble, and they turned me out.
That's incredible. What happened? This is another, maybe a silly question, but you get the gig with the Mahavishnu Orchestra, and then obviously all these different sessions start to come in. So you played with Weather Report, you played with, Tommy Bowling, all these things. So what was that like? What was that like?
Incredible. That time of my life, that would be like around 75 now.
Yeah.
74 was making Apocalypse and touring. But 75, it all exploded again with the Vision There, Emerald Beyond, Tommy Bowling coming up not long after that, and Weather Report with I did the Weather Report Black Market, and then came on. They said, "Why don't you join the band and bring a bass player?" And I said, "I'm not sure I can join the band because I've been asked to join Tommy Bowling's band, which I think I want to do something a little different at this time in my life." But I said, Jaco Pastorius out of Miami. We had played a lot in Miami together. And I said, and Joe said, I think I've heard of him. So why don't we fly him in and just see how that works out? And we did next day. Jaco flew in, and then his audition was Cannonball on the Black Market album, that second track. And I'm telling you, man, Joe starts teaching us a song. And Joe started learning the stuff. I mean, Jaco started learning it, but adding his riffs into it. And then Joe says, don't play that shit on my song.
Well, you know, we did 10 concerts with the Mahavishnu Orchestra. And
I was hoping you were going to tell this story. Please.
we followed the Mahavishnu Orchestra. I had to follow Billy Cobham.
Ralph, can you just explain the effect of Cobham on the drumming world at that point? You know, because you're right in there, and just explain what it was like to see him.
I knew what effect he had on me, which was huge. You know, when I first heard the Mahavishnu Orchestra, which was Intermounting Flame, I was on a bus with Don Ellis going to a gig. So somebody brought it in, and it was played, and again our jaws dropped. What the heck is this now? You know, so you know, Billy was, you know, a huge influence on me. So I would be backstage every concert watching them play and watching Billy and realizing, oh my God, I'm 5'6", 135 pounds, and Billy's a freaking Marine. Just so powerful. And so he taught me something about power. And I had to figure out how can I become stronger? Because I always felt I could probably be stronger in Frank's band. And so I recall at that very time practicing on a pillow in the hotel room every day, trying to work on my rebounds and everything, and just really working hard. And I even started using Billy's stick, which was a bigger stick than I was using, so I could get more sound. And it actually worked. I got better. I got faster, and I got more powerful. So Billy influenced me directly by watching him. But the band would blow me away every night. And then, you know, my thinking was, how am I going to come out on stage now and play? And it occurred to me immediately, I have to play Frank's music. I have to be in Frank's band. I got to forget about what I just saw with Mahavishnu. I can't compete. I'm not going to compete. And so that was a good lesson for me. Play what you know in this band, be appreciated for what this band is doing, different than what that band is doing. And so that was a good lesson for me. And of course I got to chat with Billy and backstage and whatnot. And you talk a lot, Andy, about Billy and being a part of the whole fusion thing, and maybe being in the top 3 or 4 drummers that gave us that style. But going back to Chester, so after playing those 10 concerts with the Mahavishnu, and Ruth Underwood sort of cites this later on when we had a discussion, a round table with Chad and Chester and myself and Ruth and Terry. Yeah, Ruth thought maybe Frank realized the power that was coming off the band with the Mahavishnu, and in order to get that in his band, he needed to add another drummer. So that's one theory. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I don't really know.
I think Chester has spoken about that being the case.
Okay, but after that, I arrived at a new set of rehearsals because we were getting ready to go on the road again. And lo and behold, there's 2 drum sets on the stage. Unbeknownst to me, Frank had hired Chester Thompson. And so I walked in now with, oh, well, what's going on? You know, and Frank didn't say a word. And I met Chester, and suddenly he was in the band. And so it's like, well, how's this going to work out? You know, and I was feeling weird. I didn't know what this meant. You know, what was my role going to be? Was it going to change? Was Frank not happy with what I was doing? 1,000 things went through my head. So we started rehearsing, and by the end of the rehearsal, I had to decide: am I going to stay in or am I going to get out? And I decided to stay in because, well, this worked out in Don's band with more than one drummer, and certainly can work out here. And I can accept this. You know, Chester is certainly a great drummer, and but what we're going to have to do is learn how to play with one another, because Chester comes from Baltimore. He's an R&B drummer, jazz drummer. I come from the West Coast, as wide as you can be, and how are we going to come together here? You know,